and welcome to another live Boots on the Ground. I'm Shoshani, and today we're debunking the media lies, the bias, the anti-Semitic rhetoric, the absolute lies that are coming out over the last week specifically about what Israel is doing in the when it comes to humanitarian aid being delivered to the people of Gaza. We're live for the next about 45 minutes here in downtown Jerusalem. Right behind me, if we can switch to the wide shot, that is downtown Jerusalem. I'm sitting at the TBN Israel studio. We're here at the heart of Jerusalem with our amazing team, with Sam, with Micah, who are running all the electronics behind the scenes. And we're here to tell you today about exactly what is happening in the Gaza Strip, to debunk the lies, to debunk the anti-Semitic, to debunk the negative rhetoric that's been going out. And there's a lot to unpack. So here's what we're going to be doing over the next 45 minutes, give or take. I'm going to run through what's been happening in the last week or so in the Gaza Strip, and that's a lot. We're going to take 3 sessions of questions and answers for people at home. And as we're doing that, we have a Q&A bar that's going on the YouTube live. It runs on the sidebar. It's called Chats. You can do 2 things there. You can leave a comment. It can be hi, it can be hello, it can be something. You can leave a super like, which is a little, I guess it's a dollar bill down on the right-hand corner of the screen, which makes a small donation that helps support TBN Israel and what we do here. And you can leave a super, what did you call it, Mike? A super comment?
Super chat.
Super chat. So that's a donation with a chat? Yes, which is a donation with a chat. So what we're doing is we're running live, talking about everything that's been happening in the Gaza Strip, about the media misinformation, about the lies spread by the BBC and the Washington Post and CNN about what Israel is doing there, about the bias of the UN and many other aid organizations, all prevented at or all aimed at making Israel look bad and make the Palestinians and the Hamas specifically look good. So if you're joining us, thank you for being here with us. Once again, I'm Shoshani. Hi, Melissa Sopik, who just made a lovely donation. Thank you, and hello wherever you are at. Anyway, so we're here. I'm Shoshani. We're live at the TBN Israel studio, and we're talking about what's been going on in the Gaza Strip, the biases, the lies, specifically over the past week, the terrible, horrendous media bias that's been taking place, something that just is a never-ending stream of biases against what's happening in Israel. This is something we do every week, boots on the ground, live, Q&A from Jerusalem. We're here to answer your questions about what's happening. But before we dive into the questions, let me stop and just say that if you are here, and if you're a regular viewer, and you're one of about half of our viewers that haven't subscribed yet, take a second, pause this video, we'll still be here when you get back, and like and share and subscribe to make sure you don't miss the next video. So let's talk about what's been happening in the Gaza Strip, and it's a lot. In fact, I woke up what day is it today? The other day, and I almost felt overwhelmed by the amount of negative news that was happening in this region. From the Iranians and their push for the bomb, and the lies going on in the Gaza Strip. It's just been a heavy season here, and I think it's important for you at home to understand what's happening here, and more importantly, connect to the truth of what's happening on the ground. Because what we're here to do at TBN Israel is tell you the truth about what's happening in this part of the world. And that's important because there are a lot of people that don't want you to know what the truth is. A lot of people that would hate for you to find out what truly is happening here. That would hate for you to find out that there's a good and a bad in this side of the world. And there absolutely is, and we're going to get into that. But let me start with what's been happening over the last couple of days. I'll start with the White House. Just a couple of days ago, the White House press secretary, Caroline Levitt, she blasted the BBC. And the BBC quoted what they called unverified Hamas figures in stating that the IDF was, what? Killing Palestinian civilians in the Gaza Strip. But they're not the only ones to do that. There are several other networks that did this. But in this case, the BBC, which is a huge outlet, was publicly targeted by the White House saying you have to retract the statement, which, by the way, they did. The second thing is that while this is happening, the Israeli aid corridor and corridors in the Gaza Strip. This is plural. Multiple humanitarian areas, multiple humanitarian zones are being expanded. There's an enormous effort by the IDF and the Israeli government alongside multiple aid organizations. GHF is one of them, a US-based organization, to give aid to people in the Gaza Strip. As far as we know, up till now, more than 7 million meals have been given out, despite the fact that Hamas has been using sniper fire to kill people of Gaza that have been trying to receive free food from aid organizations. Remember this, because we're going to come back to this topic. The Hamas is shooting civilians within Gaza to prevent them from receiving aid from international aid organizations. Shalom Tanya from Australia, good to see you. Another headline that we're going to talk about today is the fact that the Hamas is losing its grip in the Gaza Strip. One of their biggest chokeholds on the people of Gaza was the fact that they controlled the money coming in and going out of the Gaza Strip, and they've done so systematically, violently, and time again. They've stolen the food from their own people, and now that aid is coming in a different way, it's a lot harder for them to hold on to their power. Another headline, and we're going to talk about this extensively in just a minute or two, is the fact that multiple news outlets have been spreading lies about what's been happening in the Gaza Strip, specifically what Israel has been doing in the Gaza Strip, and what the Hamas has been doing, and what aid organizations have been doing. I'm going to give you guys a crash course in media bias and public perception twisting in just a minute after we cover this. And then really importantly, the IDF is on full-scale attack mode in the Gaza Strip. There are 5 divisions mobilized within the Gaza Strip. We're talking a very substantial number of soldiers, all targeted at one thing and one thing only: eliminate Hamas, the brutal terrorist organization, eliminate their chokehold, their stronghold over Gaza, and bring back Israeli hostages. Division 162, which is one of the sort of elite divisions in the Israeli army, just clears Khan Yunis. They've struck almost 3,000 targets. 800 terrorists were eliminated in this last operation, which is a very substantial number. And right now, and this is a number you need to hold on to, 77% of the Gaza Strip is held or controlled one way or another by observation or by fire by the IDF. That's a substantial number. Thank you, Be Free Florida, for the donation. Keep them coming. So this is Operation Gideon's Chariots. It's been ongoing for 3 weeks now in the Gaza Strip. Ongoing operation, 5 Israeli divisions mobilized through it. But let me talk about the first thing we're here for, and we're going to go into a quick questions and answers session in just a second. The headline today is media bias and how Hamas and, well, let's just say it, anti-Semitic, anti-Israeli entities around the world, both governmental and non-governmental, are trying to twist the truth, to lie to you, wherever you are around the world, about what's truly happening in the Gaza Strip. And I'm going to give you an example. A couple days ago, I just ran a video on this on Instagram a couple hours ago. A couple days ago, the Washington Post, a very reputable newspaper most days of the week, comes out with this piece that says, headline, 30, or IDF kills 30 in Gaza. And there's a story there that says essentially that the IDF shoots people that were entering one of the humanitarian zones in the Gaza Strip. Let me just explain this. What these humanitarian zones are, there are 4 currently, where it's sort of this fenced-off area where the IDF, together with aid organizations from the U.S., are bringing in people, handing them personally aid to prevent Hamas from robbing the aid and selling it back to the people. This is pretty much the only way we've been able to make sure that aid gets directly to people in the Gaza Strip and isn't stolen by Hamas and its many evil friends. So the story comes out, and essentially the Washington Post and BBC and several others say that close to 30 Palestinians are killed by the IDF in an attack on them as they're coming to receive aid from these international organizations. And there's one part of this story that is true, that there were Palestinians that were shot at and some of them were killed. That's where the truth ends in this story. Here's what really happened over there. And we're going to go in this in depth. The IDF has been sending soldiers throughout the Gaza Strip to secure areas that are called humanitarian zones to allow international aid organizations to hand distribute aid to the people of the Gaza Strip. And the reason they're doing this is because the Hamas terrorist organization has, up till now, for a year and a half of this war, stolen the goods out of the hands of people that have been donating money and food and goods to the people of Gaza. I've seen this with my own eyes. This isn't something I read about, isn't something I saw a video of. I was there on the border crossing, and we could see the trucks that were being robbed by Hamas. And if you want to Google this, just Google it. There's every day of the week, there's footage coming out showing how Hamas has been robbing the trucks coming in with aid into the Gaza Strip. Anyway, back to our story. Thank you. So the story runs, it's on BBC, it's on the Washington Post, on multiple outlets, and it says the IDF has killed close to 30 Palestinians in the Gaza Strip as they were coming to receive aid. But here's what's really happening. The IDF is protecting these people, protecting the aid workers that are trying to distribute the goods to these people, and there's someone who's firing at them, but it's not the IDF. I'm going to give you one guess of who's actually firing at these people. Can you guess it's Hamas? Because that's exactly who it is. The Hamas terrorist organization, and hear me out on this, are shooting their own people as they come to receive aid from international organizations. This aid is given to them free of charge in a way that is done to protect their safety and prevent them from being robbed. And Hamas, which is the governing body of the Gaza Strip, is opening fire on its own people. But it gets worse. Not only are they doing that after a year and a half where they've been stealing all the aid coming in and selling it at a ridiculous price to their people, not only that, they go further than that. They lie and they say that it's Israel that's doing that. But that's not it. It gets even worse. Not only are they lying, media outlets around the world, the BBC, the Washington Post, multiple other outlets, spread this rumor knowing full well that it's coming from deceitful entities within Hamas who've consistently lied throughout this war about the numbers, about the extent of the operations, about the identity of the people that have been hurt. They consistently lie about these topics time and time again. And this rumor and this theory is spread around the world. And here's where the story gets really interesting. So this lie is spread, and 2 days go by, and then it becomes known to everyone that it's very, very clear that this wasn't what happened, that the IDF didn't actually shoot at these people. And when they do that, when the truth comes out, these outlets release a statement. And the statement says, oh, we're sorry. Excuse me. This isn't exactly how we usually do business. We tell a more accurate story. Usually we're better at reporting. Now, bear in mind, these are very highly respected, and these aren't like small outlets. The BBC, the Washington Post, CNN, they circulate the story. And when they're circulating the story, they tell people around the world a truth that is not a truth, that it's actually a full lie. And it says the IDF killed close to 30 people in the Gaza Strip. And they know that this is not true, and they know that the entity that they're quoting is an entity that lies consistently. And after this happens, 2 days later, 3 days later, 4 days later, they come out with this little correction that says, oh, we're sorry. We didn't really mean to say exactly that. That's not the way we usually report. We're sorry about that. But the damage has already been done. And the lie has already been spread around the world. And that's just an example how someone can take a small lie and try to influence the way the world looks at this entire story.
We have a video of...
Let's see that. So Sam's saying we have a video showing what exactly happened there. Oh, look at what you see there. That is a Hamas gunman shooting at people that have come to receive aid. You see those people lying on the floor? They were shot by Hamas gunmen who are trying to prevent them from receiving aid. This is terrible. I can't outline how horrendous it is what is happening in the Gaza Strip. A terrorist organization is shooting its own people, trying to prevent its own people from receiving free aid. Oh, what is this? We have a surprise guest over here. Hi, El Pinto.
By the way, we're trying a double live. So
you're live on your phone?
You're live on Instagram and live on YouTube at the same time, so we can make sure that everybody hears what you have to say.
Well, I hope so.
Very important.
I haven't been this upset about like media bias in a long time. This is so upsetting.
Last time I was upset like this when this war started.
Yeah.
When we were attacked and people thought that Israel is to blame in the fact that terrorists barged into the country and took 200 people
Yeah,
kidnapped.
we're in a terrible situation. And my goal today is, and I'm saying this to everyone at home, is to make sure that people around the world understand that there are those who are intentionally lying about what's happening here, and it's done at the expense of the people of Gaza and the expense of the people of Lebanon and Syria and Iran. That's why this is happening.
Yeah.
They're not doing this to benefit anything. They're just doing it to attack Israel.
Yeah, exactly. But
Yeah.
keep it up.
Thank you,
I
Yael.
think a few people have some questions here in the crowd.
Yeah, so I was going to say, if anyone's joining us now, let me, first of all, welcome to live. We're Boots on the Ground live. We're in Jerusalem. We just had a visit from the one and only Yael Pinto. Anyway, we're live here in Jerusalem. I'm Mati Shoshani. I'm joined by Sam and Micah and Yael Pinto, who's visiting us now in the studio. And thank you, Yael. And going live on Instagram, by the way. So here's the story. We're talking about media bias and what they've been lying about in the Gaza Strip. And if you haven't done so yet, you can make a super like and make a small donation to TBN Israel. You can comment, and we're sifting through the comments as we speak and picking the best of them. And we're going to take 3 sessions for questions and answers. And I think it's time for our first questions. If, by the way, if you want to give, thank you for put that graphic back on. If you want to make a donation, it's on the screen right now. It's tbnisrael.com/give, and that'll take you to a direct donation place. By the way, our whole goal, and by the way, Yair is the one who's iterated this really nicely, or explained this. Our whole goal here is to tell the truth about what happens in this part of the world to people around it. And the reason we do that is because people lie. And we're here today debunking some of the lies of what's been happening in the Gaza Strip. Let's go to some of the questions. Micah, hit us with some questions. Okay, where is Pinto? Dream Creations in Sri Lanka. Pinto is right next to me. Let's go to the wide shot. There is Pinto. Next question. That was very much a softball.
Let's try this one.
If Syria will join the Abraham Accords, will Israel be willing to return the Golan Heights to them? Absolutely not. Great question. Let me tell you a bit of history. Where was that person from, by the way? Do we have an indication?
No.
No. So wherever you were from in the world, thank you for that question. The question was, if we go to the Abraham Accords once more to plan phase 3 of them, I guess, or 2, will Israel be willing to give up the Golan Heights? Let me tell you a bit of history here. One, Israel was in the past willing to give up the Golan Heights. In the early 2000s and again later in the 2000s, we were negotiating directly with the Syrian government at the time. Then it was president, who's now no longer the president, Bashar al-Assad, who fled Syria a year ago. But we were negotiating with their government on a long-term peace agreement in which we would return much of the Golan Heights. And let me be clear here. The Golan Heights were taken from Syria when they invaded Israel, multiple times, by the way, but both in 67 and in 73. But it gets better than that. And this is what most people don't know, is that Israel already has a lot of land that we own inside of Syria. There's an entire region in east of what the Israeli Golan Heights now is, called Haran, which is a biblical name, that was purchased in cash in the 1920s by Orthodox Jews, well before there was a country called Syria or anyone called Assad. And that land was, by the way, illegally taken by the Syrian government and never given back to the legal owners of it, who gave that right to the state of Israel. So if there's any conversation of land exchanges, we're happy to exchange it. They can keep the land that they stole from us. We'll hold on to the Golan Heights. And I'll just say this, we've learned from this war and multiple wars before it that we need to keep the high ground, and the Golan Heights is definitely the high grounds. We're not going back to the borders that existed pre-1967 and definitely not pre-1973. Next question.
All right. Hold on 1 second. Yeah, I picked this one just because Mansour's the man.
Question was attack the drones against Russia. See Mansour Askar. We know Mansour, known him many, many years. Also against extreme Muslims in Russia. Not that I know of. So the question was, there was a big drone attack that, according to reports that I've heard recently, destroyed about a third of Russia's bomber fleet. That's a number I heard. Crazy number. 40-something strategic bombers that were just parked on the tarmac. And I think it's going to be learned in history. If you haven't seen the footage on this, go watch it. Essentially, Ukraine hid drones within shipping containers that they convinced Russian drivers to drive to the proximity of Russian air bases, and then those crates opened and drones took off and blew up on top of it's amazing of Russian bombers. An incredible feat in intelligence, incredibly feat in many other ways. To my knowledge, this has nothing to do with extremist Muslims. This has everything to do with the Russia war against Ukraine, and the Ukrainians try to shift or turn the tables on the Russians. And one might say that they absolutely have. Losing 40, strategic bombers, it doesn't matter how big of a country you are and how cheaply you know how to manufacture those bombers, that is a very painful hit. And shout out to Mansour Ashkar, because he is a great, great guy. Next question. What about Greta and Co? Linda Schmill asks. I don't know where she is right now as we speak. Earlier this morning, Israeli news had reports of her somewhere in the sea, sunbathing or something along those lines. Greta, how do you pronounce this in English? Thunberg. She was on a flotilla that's in part backed by the Turks, who are known haters of Israel on a government level, maybe not on a people level. She's, since the days of her, let's call it, promoting a more, let's call it, what is the word I'm looking for? She's a climate activist. Since then, she's become a pro-Palestinian activist, but I hate to say this, she's much less informed when it comes to the Palestinians than she was on climate issues, and honestly, maybe the two are connected. Maybe she was less informed than either. I'm not sure. Again, this is sort of like the way where you see people that have a very, very large global audience lose focus and become anti-Israeli and anti-Zionist. Sometimes they do it because they feel their audience is encouraging to do that, and sometimes they do it because they're misinformed and misguided. And I think that's the case here. A very passionate young person who did, in my opinion, was pushing for a positive goal that became very misguided and very misinformed, and thinks that supporting the Turks in their conflict against Israel when it relates to the Hamas in Gaza, the right way to go is to support Hamas. I think it's easy to see here that there are good guys and bad guys here, and Hamas are not on the side of the good guys. Greta, I'm really sorry, you're you're supporting the wrong team here. Let's take another question. Okay, legacy media state that it's not verified that the gunmen shooting Gaza's seeking aid are Hamas. Is this verified? Thank you, Greg Shand, for that question. Great picture, Greg. I'm not sure, and I need to explain something. We work closely with the IDF and the IDF spokesperson unit, and the issue is here is that the IDF is very, very slow to give decisive answers because we always investigate before we give conclusive answers. And that's sort of where things get tricky. It's very cheap for these outlets to run stories and say, well, we don't know what exactly happened. Maybe it's Hamas, maybe it isn't Hamas. Maybe it's IDF, maybe it isn't IDF. That talk is very, very cheap for them. And like we've seen, they spread lies that are, absolute lies. The IDF shoots 30 people, and then they say, well, we don't really know if the gunmen are affiliated with Hamas. Well, if they're not Hamas and they're not IDF, who are these gunmen? Comment in the comment section if you think you have an idea of who they are. But it's those kind of things. I'll give you a different example. A couple of weeks back, we have this case where 6 warehouses in the Gaza Strip, they start burning simultaneously one night. Some of them belong to aid organizations. Some of them belong to large businessmen in the Gaza Strip. There was only one person or entity that benefited from this. It was Hamas. Hamas saw the aid coming into these different organizations. Excuse me. They saw the aid coming into these different organizations, and they were afraid they were losing their grip on the goods coming into the Gaza Strip. I'm reminding you, they always steal the goods. They always rob the trucks, and they just went out one night, and let's call it unidentified gunmen went and burnt the warehouses of multiple aid organizations and businessmen within the Gaza Strip. And they said, well, we don't know for sure that it's Hamas. Well, who else could it be? Who else has the power to attack that many targets at the same time without Hamas, the governing party, stopping them? So that goes to the same question exactly. Look, if the aid is, if the aid is being looted going in, and there's only one party that loses all power or most of their power if someone else is able to bring aid to the population, and they start shooting them. Who is doing this if it isn't Hamas? I mean, look at the images running on your screen right now. Those are images of hungry people that have been prevented from reaching food time and time again. Just today, I was watching, actually just before we went live, watching footage of trucks, gasoline trucks, having Hamas gunmen firing at them as they're trying to bring gasoline into the Gaza Strip. So look, this is not hearsay. This is not an assumption. Here's the facts on the ground. There are people that are trying to bring aid to the people of Gaza. That is the government of Israel and multiple aid organizations. There are people who want that aid not to be given to the people of Gaza. Their name is Hamas. And not only that, and this is where things get super tricky and super complicated, UN-related aid organizations and anti-Israel related aid organizations have all said one thing. We'd rather, and they didn't use these words, I'm paraphrasing, they said, look, because Israel is involved in securing the humanitarian parameters or areas where aid is being distributed, we don't see this as the right thing to do, so we'd rather not participate in this. And let me paraphrase what they're saying. They're saying that if this in any way is related to Israel, they would rather the people of Gaza not receive food than they receive food through Israel. Hear me out on this. The UN and multiple aid organizations would rather people in Gaza starve than Israel being able to look like it's doing the right thing, which Israel is doing the right thing, by the way, to prevent the perception of Israel doing the right thing or the knowledge of Israel doing the right thing coming out. These aid organizations, the UN included in this, are willing to prevent the people of Gaza from receiving food. And then it gets much easier when we talk about the Hamas. Hamas actively opened fire on people that are trying to receive free aid that is given to them within the Gaza Strip, because when they receive that aid, it means that Hamas is losing power. Let's take a deep breath. I'm going to recap on where we are, and we're going to go back to some questions and answers. So first of all, if you've just joined us, let's see how many people are with us. We're over 1,500 people watching us live. It's wonderful to be with you. We're here in Jerusalem at the TBN Israel studio. I'm Mati Shoshani, and this is Boots on the Ground live from Jerusalem. Today we're talking about media bias and media lies about what's been happening in the Gaza Strip. Our leading story today is and will be, and I think it should be for many days to come, the fact that multiple large outlets around the world, the BBC, the CNN, the Washington Post, knowingly spread lies about what happened in the Gaza Strip, saying that Israel intentionally shot dozens of Gazans, killing them while they were marching to receive aid. That is a lie. It's been disproved time and time again. Now the question is, what is the exact identity of those who were shooting these people? Let's say it's not the IDF. It's being investigated, by the way, by the IDF too and by other organizations. At the same time, Israel is spending time, resources, and endangering the lives of our soldiers trying to bring aid to the people within Gaza and preventing it from falling into the hands of Hamas. If you're with us and you've joined this live broadcast, pause this video for just a second. Make sure you like, you share, and you subscribe. It brings us to every person. It helps us spread the truth because we're here to tell people the truth from what's happening on the ground. Let me tell you the difference between this channel and many other channels that tell you about what's happening in Israel. We're here in Israel. We speak the language. We read the news in its original language. We have served in the IDF, myself, Yael Pinto, many members of our team. We know what's happening on the ground here. This isn't hearsay. We're not reading secondary or tertiary sources of information. We're reading firsthand reports. We're seeing things on the ground, and we're bringing that truth to you. You can, by the way, also support this show and help us continue to share the truth from Israel. There's a link on the screen right now. It's www.tbnisrael.com/give, and you can make a donation to keep this channel going. Help us share the truth about what's happening in Israel. You can do more than that too. In the comment section of this live on YouTube, you can make a super like, and that super like, which is this funny little dollar sign on the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, lets you both leave a comment that pops up to the top of the list and leave a small donation or a big donation to keep helping us share the truth from Jerusalem to you around the world. So again, we're talking about everything that's been going on in the Gaza Strip, the absolute pure, well, how do I say this? pure evil of the lies that are being spread about what happened in Israel. And we're here to take your questions. Thank you, Punk, for making, I don't know what that currency was. Was that yens? I don't know how much that is. 10,000 yen donation. Thank you for that. We have time for more questions and answers. And we want to focus on the truth about what's been happening in the Gaza Strip and what's really happening on the ground. Micah, do you have some questions for us? Okay, Edward Savage. He says, do you foresee any accountability brought upon media outlets that foster hate through false reporting? Sadly, no. And this is where these things are very, very painful. The question was, is there a way to bring accountability? I started this broadcast with the statement of, this is how these things work. People lie, and then 3 days later, they go on and say, oh, you know, this very weak apology. We're sorry, this isn't exactly how we should report. And meanwhile, they accuse, and I need to equate the level of the lie and the level of the repentance that comes after this. I specifically was looking into the Washington Post today, and they have a headline. And the headline, I mean, it's the #1 headline when you Google Washington Post Gaza right now. They had, before they changed and edited the article, more than 2 million people read this article. And the headline was, IDF shoots and kills 27 people in the Gaza Strip. And that headline is a lie. They come out a day, or it's 2 days later actually, and they say, look, this report wasn't accurate. They softened the headline. They say we didn't give the IDF a chance to fully, whatever, you know, fully respond to the accusations made. Let's just be honest here. They were lying. They knew they were lying. They knew they were quoting a source that was a deceitful source correlated with Hamas, which is the Hamas Gaza Health Organization, who've been lying throughout this war. And they still went ahead and published this. And then when it became very publicly known that they were lying about this, they made this very weak apology that honestly doesn't make much of a difference. Because when you've had tens of millions of people that have read a false headline between BBC, CNN, Washington Post, and countless others that retweeted, reshared, and sent out this information, the message is out there. The narrative has been shaped, and it's going to take a really long time to reshape that narrative. And the fact that you retract part of that later on doesn't really change it. I think the truth for this, or the way to support this, is to share this kind of truth, share these kind of broadcasts, share sources of information that truly show what's happening on the ground. Also, to say another issue here is that when you're on the defensive here, and Israel is defending itself from these lies, you can't just come out and say, we had no part in this. We investigate thoroughly. We go and check. I can tell you, both as a journalist and someone who spent a lot of time in the IDF, specifically in this past year and a half, the IDF thoroughly investigates every single claim that is brought against it for any kind of misconduct related to its soldiers, definitely soldiers shooting at civilians. And many times, or most times, we'll find out they weren't true. But even if there is a kernel or a grain of truth to it, the IDF thoroughly investigates and punishes those who go against the IDF code of conduct. And this is important for me to note. The way Israel operates and the IDF operates is very different than other countries. We take pride in being in having the moral high ground against our enemies. We don't hurt civilians. We don't torture civilians. We use the judicial system to bring the law against people, and we're not unlawful in the way we conduct ourselves in times of peace or in times of war. This is very important for me to say and for the IDF also to say. Next question. How will the U.S. withdrawal out of Syria affect Israel? Good question. The U.S. withdrawal from Syria will affect Israel in a negative way. The U.S. has multiple bases within Syria. And let me just give you a bit of a background here, and I'll try to make this short. Israel withdrew from, the Syrian government fell. Assad was there was a violent coup. El-Julani takes over, or Muhammad Ashara, depending on his name this week, takes over Syria. Their dictator, the dictator family, who were the dictators there for multiple lifetimes, they flee the country, and then it falls into the hands of HTS, which is an organization formerly affiliated with other Islamic organizations in the region, and ISIS one way or another. Anyway, what happens is that change of power creates a vacuum, and into that vacuum gets sucked in. Well, first, the Russians sort of flee and they leave some of their bases, or they downscale some of their bases. The U.S. downscale some of its forces. Israel takes over some of the strongholds or the high ground on the border, and then Turkey tries to take a stakehold in the ground over there. The U.S. has been doing something, and this is a much bigger picture comment. They've been zooming out or reducing some of their effect, some of their presence in the Middle East, because President Trump and the White House are pushing for a regional agreement that changes the balance of power, that pulls in Saudi, changes the agreement with the Iranians, brings down the Houthis, rebuilds Lebanon, rebuilds Syria, and then tries to wrap Gaza and the Judean Samaria Palestinian Authority into one greater agreement. Again, it's very complicated, but what that means is there's more of a burden on Israel to protect itself. And just to give you an insight into Israeli news, just this morning, Israel already warns the Syrians and says, just FYI, if you go back, and it's interesting, they used to receive weapons shipments from the Iranians, but also from the North Koreans, weapon systems and stuff like that. Israel warns them publicly and says, if you continue to allow, or once again go back to allowing weapon shipments of coming into your country, we will come after you. So Israel has to be much more proactive to preserve the peace in this region and make sure that Syria doesn't once more become a travel route for weaponry in and out of this region, but to a hotbed for terrorism to then attack Israel from that land. I think we have time for a couple more questions, and then we'll start wrapping up. America's the only ones with Israel with boots on the ground. Where is the UN? France, Germany, and Canada. Great question. Myself and Tomel, our director, we were in Syria, by the way. We saw what the UN was doing. The UN was doing absolutely nothing. They were watching as Hezbollah built tunnels under the ground and built attack tunnels and stashed weapons to attack Israel. So as far as Israel is concerned, and I'm speaking personally, not on behalf of the government, we can do without the UN right now, because the UN have proven time and time again that they are unable to preserve the peace in this region. They've proven time and time again, especially when it comes to any agencies, UNRWA and others, that are related to the Palestinians, that bias against Israel is their only method of operation. There's no question about it. UN employees, and I need people to hear this, UN employees, part of official UN agencies, were involved in the October 7th attacks on Israel. Do you hear what I'm saying? Salaries that are paid by the UN were paid to people that were terrorists that attacked Israel on October 7th. That's how bad the UN influence in this region is. So thank you, but no thank you. We'll do just fine without the UN involvement in this region. We've seen every outpost that the UN was at in the northern border, had Hezbollah terrorists building tunnels behind it and next to it. They knew it was there and they did nothing about it, and they did nothing to warn Israel about it. So we've had enough of UN help, quote unquote, in this region. And the Israeli public and official mindset right now is we protect ourselves. We have one main ally in this region. It's called the U.S. of America, the U.S. of A, as we call it. They're the only ones who've stood beside us consistently throughout this war. But on our borders, we make sure that we have boots on the ground to protect ourselves from whatever enemy and whatever entity comes against us. How does the extinction of Mohammed Sinwar affect the members of Hamas? This is interesting. We're going to talk about this in the podcast that airs in 2 days? The day after tomorrow. Shabbat. 2 days from now. 2.5 days from now. Mohammed Sinwar is the brother of Yihya Sinwar, who was also eliminated by the IDF. This is a murderous and violent family that have, ruled part of the Hamas leadership. It was confirmed earlier this week that Mohammed Sinwar, the brother of Yihya Sinwar, was also killed in an attack where he died in a tunnel. Just quick, interesting side note: he was in a command bunker that was built underneath a hospital. So when you hear the reports that says IDF strikes Gaza hospital, there's a reason for that. The reason is that there are Hamas terrorists inside the hospital. There are weapons stashed underneath it. And sometimes the head of Hamas is underneath that hospital hiding. Look, we have a problem. Hamas continues to breed terrorist and violent individuals who've been indoctrinated to hate Israel. And until a leader rises up in the Gaza Strip that is not programmed or pre-programmed to hate and attack Israel, we're going to keep repeating history time and time again. We have to change the way we're operating there. And I need to say this openly, and I say this biblically, I say this on every level. The Muhammad Sinwars and the Yahya Sinwars of this world, and the Ismail Haniyas of this world, these are people that deserve judgment for their actions. They are leaders of murderers. They are arch terrorists. They are the masterminds behind the October 7th attacks. They're the likes of the heads of ISIS and Al Qaeda, people that whose existence is all focused on bringing death and destruction to this world. My hope is, my prayer is, that the leadership of Hamas collapses. That the leadership of Hamas collapses and that is replaced by someone virtuous that says, hold on, guys, let's do something that is different than death and destruction time and time again. That is my hope and my prayer. Thank you, Lynn, for the donation. How can we help fight disinformation? Like, share, and subscribe. Fernando, thank you. Thank you, Fernando Almeida. Great Brazilian name. Like, share, and subscribe. That is the truth. We're living in an age of media wars and information wars. And the only way to combat that is just spread as much truth as you possibly can. That's our message here. That is our goal here at TBN Israel, is to share truth about what happens here on the ground. We're not visiting this land. We're not reporters that have a stint in this land. We live in Israel. We speak the language. We're of the land and of the people. And we want you to hear the truth of what's happening in Israel. And if you want to help us keep doing that and help us expand our message and reach more people, first of all, you can share this message. And two, you can make a donation to TBN Israel at tbnisrael.com/give and help. Well, we say we were in a studio well lit right now. Keep the lights on. But also, we have so many stories we want to tell you, and they require funding. So, look, support has been incredible over the past year and a half. I know it's going to keep coming. You guys have been faithful. God has been faithful to everything we're doing here. We deeply, deeply appreciate that. Deeply appreciate everyone who's been supporting and loving on us and liking and sharing and subscribing and donating. I want to recap here as we wrap this up, and we'll have time for just a couple blitz questions after this. We're here talking about the media bias, about the fact that in the last week or so, news outlets around the world have been spreading lies about what's happening in the Gaza Strip, primarily the lies stating that the IDF intentionally killed Gazan civilians as they were going to receive aid. The opposite of that is the truth. The IDF has been fighting, literally fighting, to make sure aid is reached by the civilians of the Gaza Strip. We've been sacrificing our soldiers to make sure the people of Gaza, our enemies, get aid directly to them. And Hamas, on the other hand, have been killing their own people to prevent aid from being given to them free, because their business is stealing the aid and the good to perpetuate suffering and death within their own population. And our goal in the Gaza Strip now and always is to eliminate Hamas and free Israeli hostages. We're here live at TBN Israel. We've been going for almost 45 minutes. We have time, I think, for one or two last questions, and we're going to wrap this live broadcast. Okay, who is the new leader of Hamas? We were just actually talking about this in the podcast. Let me pull this up for just a second. And
It's a hard name.
yeah, I can't pronounce it. Pull up the next question, and I'll get the exact pronunciation of this in a sec. Is UNRWA still active? Complicated question. UNRWA still exists, but there's been a huge amount of backlash against it on many different fronts, both legal and otherwise. UNRWA is an organization that was set up as a temporary relief organization for the Palestinian people. This is something that happens many times over the years, but usually they're temporary organizations, not permanent organizations. And this time around, this organization for 70-something years continued to exist, and that's the problem. The problem they continue to exist time and time again. Because of that, we have a problem. UNRWA were people that partook in the attacks of October 7th. They were active participants in aids of the Hamas. They're the kind of people that we simply can't allow to be the people representing the Palestinian people. Mike, have you been able to find his active name? I forget the exact pronunciation, and I don't want to botch this on live.
The question, I'll look it up while you're doing that.
Yeah. Last question from Michelle Pruitt. How are Hamas able to get into the areas of food aid when it's supposed to be distributed by aid groups? They're not. Hamas are outside of the aid distribution areas. Just to clarify, there are 4 aid organizations within the Gaza Strip, and they're inside the Gaza Strip, not outside of it. And there's 8 organizations that are coming in, and those 8 organizations are U.S.-backed. They distribute the goods, and sort of to a distance from that, the IDF is positioned protecting them. But what Hamas have been doing, they've been shooting people trying to go into these aid organizations. So let's imagine, let's say there's a boxed off area with fencing and a parameter and stuff like that set. Hamas have been shooting at people trying to go in and threatening them. And in some cases, I think especially in the early days, they were robbing them on the way out to prevent the aid from being distributed. Look, it's very, very, almost impossible to fully stop any kind of Hamas attacks because they're everywhere and they're fully funded. I think this is the end of our broadcast. We'll have to get back to you next time with we had this written, I can't find it in my notes, with the new nickname of the Hamas leader. No, it's Azadin El something, El Khadad, yeah, Azadin El Khadad is the nickname. His name, yeah, the guy's name is Azadin El Khadad, but he has a nickname. It's El something, and I forget what it is. Abu Sahib? We'll talk about this in tomorrow's report. Anyway, Azadin El Khadad is the guy's name, but he has a nickname, and I can't remember exactly what it is. Hey guys, we've been running for 49 minutes. Thank you for being with us. We've been running strong. Thank you for supporting. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for liking. Make sure to pause this video at the end of it. Like, share, and subscribe if you haven't done this. And to everyone who's donated, who's been with us over this last year and a half of the war, who stood with us and shared this information, thank you from the bottom of our heart. We wake up in the morning thankful for the fact that we're supported and loved and that the truth from Jerusalem is getting out to the corners of the earth. Thank you, guys. God bless you all, and make sure to be back here for the next live Boots on the Ground.